throughout the test of time, there's one thing that will always be accurate, and that is becoming is greater, is better, is beteta than being. Bestesta than being. And that is why we consider ourselves to be a work in progress. It means that you are never complete and you always have that opportunity to become someone better.
It means that you are never complete and that you are comfortable with making mistakes as they help you become the person you're supposed to be.
And that's why we are a work in progress.
Yeah, exactly.
I am Anna.
I am your host, GK.
And I am AX, the person who is cooing him from his host position, because I, not you, I am sitting in the host chair. Look at me. Look at me now. I am the captain.
I'll just say this very simply. Those who wield power have no need to show it. Thank you very much. And that's it for work in progress.
Always I am the host.
Yeah, I am the host here. You always have to say it.
Everyone knows who the leader here is. Anyways, let's move on to our icebreaker for today. And today it's going to be a short icebreaker. And it's very simple, the game. It's literally, we're going to call it Tell Me a Story. And what we're going to do is you have the option of telling us a true story or a false story. But don't tell us if it's going to be true or false. Give the story and then the panelists will decide, the other two will decide whether it's true or false.
Okay.
You got it? Got it? So because sometimes the host has to make sacrifices, I will begin. Okay, let's begin. So you know how I was in Athi River, Lukanya side, and it was really dark.
Sure.
Very dark. And so when we're walking, you know how gravel hits the floor,
Yeah.
like in the night. And the starlight was on, and so we were walking with a friend of mine, walking down a dark space. And then we started hearing like laughing sounds. So we hear the laughing sounds, we're like, oh, okay, what's going on? And so I was like, oh, okay, I'm scared, but we keep walking because I'm brave. Then as we walked on, we kept hearing the noises. Now, little did we not know that Lukenya is part of the Lukenya Getaway and Athi River is close to some park, national reserves. And so out of nowhere, we start seeing eyes, like crazy eyes, hyenas. So we start seeing the hyenas like laughing. Now, we didn't see the wires of the fence like that would keep them out. And so we got really freaked out. So I was ready to run, but my friend started getting closer. Then like it jumped at him and it was really scary. Me, after I saw him jump, I saw nothing. I ran like a baby back. I was done. I went to dinner and I told my parents we have survived a hyena attack. That is my story. Is it true or false?
We need to ask you questions, don't we?
Ask me questions.
All right. How many were you in that group?
2.
Okay. I think it's. Is it 2 questions each or 1 question per person? 2 questions.
2 questions per person.
Per person. Okay. That was my first question.
Okay, ask your second question. Just ask it. I'm trying to figure out the story.
Name the people you were with. Or name the people you were with.
I will blur it out, but his name was.
Okay. His name was Beep.
Yeah, his name was Beep.
Yeah. Okay. Calm.
Okay, so you ran back. And
I left him.
You left him.
Yeah. 100.
And
I have run away when I was supposed to be protecting an older lady from monkeys. I ran away. I didn't even run away. I closed the door on her. So she had to contend with the
kind
monkey.
Of person.
I was on the other side.
You're like Jerry from Rick and Morty.
I was trained that save your life always.
okay, where exactly were you guys trying to go? Like, what was the purpose of you?
We're walking from the room, so you have to walk through this dark gravel road before you get to dinner. So we're just taking the long route to dinner.
So it wasn't like you guys were out of
We're not
lodge.
outside of the lodge.
Okay.
So those are your 2 questions. Am I speaking truth or false?
I feel it's false.
I don't know. I'm gonna say true.
So the person who's right, their letter, the name begins with an A. Oh wait, Anna is correct. So it was false, but it was not necessarily totally false. What happened is we didn't see hyenas. The guy started making hyena noises. I freaked out and I ran. Okay, so AX, tell us your story.
Do we have time?
Yes, we're gonna take it quickly. We're gonna give ourselves an extra 3 minutes.
Now, my story involves the airport security, and gummy bears.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, so this was one time I was flying home from university, and I forgot to have food because, you know, you're supposed to eat food before you get to the airport, otherwise you have to pay like a lot of money to get food.
Because she's skinny for a reason.
That's not it. We'll discuss it another time. So I get to the airport, I do the checking in, my bags are whatever, perfect, and then I feel a hunger pains. I look to my left and my right and I see a vending machine. I'm like, perfect. So I get some gummy bears, and I eat them before I get to the next stage of security. I've eaten them, I'm feeling great, I'm feeling fine. As I get to the next stage of security, which by the way, is like that big machine that does the full body scan, so you have to remove your shoes, your socks, any jewelry, like all of it. As I'm in the process of like removing myself of anything that's metallic or jewelry, my stomach starts to go, and I'm like, God, no, right? So it just gets worse and it just gets louder. I'm like, no. Now at this point, this is the face that's on my face. It's just like, and imagine your airport security watching me do this, being like, what is wrong with this individual? Like, why are they behaving like this, right? So, as I'm about to enter, like, it's just getting worse. The pain is getting worse and worse. So before I enter the machine, I'm like, excuse me, like, I really need to go to the bathroom. Could you please could we do this later? Can I go then come back? They were like, unfortunately, ma'am, you can't. You have to do this and then get to the bathroom because the bathroom is on the other side. Yep. So I was like, okay, cool, calm. So I managed to hold it in, literally. Hold my things together, literally, until I finish with the machine, have my shoes on. At that point, I run to the bathroom, right? But then airport security is like looking at me very suspiciously because I'm behaving suspiciously, to their defense. They're like, ma'am, excuse me, could you please come back? I'm like, no, I don't want to come back. So they asked me to come back, right? And I'm like, yes, what is it? They're like, oh, we think are you behaving rather suspiciously? We want to understand, like, are you okay? Are you in trouble? I'm like, I'm very fine. I just had some gummy bears and they're making their way through my system and I just really need to go. They're like, well, you need to understand that, like, you're behaving a bit suspiciously, so we'd like you to come with us. I'm like, no. Let me go to the bathroom, then I'll come and answer all the questions you want. Here's a gummy bag. Like, please just let me go. Like, after this back and forth for like 5 minutes, right? They finally let me go to the bathroom. Like, thank Jesus. And I make it. Everything was all good. I remained cleaned.
So the question I have is, what narcotics were you taking across? Because every airport story I've heard, it's like they always approach someone who has stomach problems. They're like, okay, can we take you? Then they're like, oh, I have stomach problems. Kumbe, they have like 5 bags of cocaine in their stomach.
Here's the thing, it was literally just a bag of gummy bears. That's all I bought. I just think the gummy bears were just wrong.
So let me ask, so we have 1 minute to ask quickly.
Yeah.
What type of gummy bears were they?
Haribo gummy bears, you know the ones that are green, yellow, and red? Those ones.
Okay. Coca-Cola ones?
No, the regular ones, the actual gummy bears.
Okay.
They have orange, red, green, and yellow.
About gummy bears.
Who are you flying with?
I was flying alone.
No, as in which airline?
Oh, Kenya Airways, of course. You know, Pride of Africa.
What was the color of the lady who asked you?
White.
Now, I hope you asked the question I want you to ask.
Well, I don't know where you're going with that.
Was it a lady who asked you that question?
Yes, but you just said the lady.
Yeah, I was trying to trick you. Any other questions, Anna?
No.
So?
I'm making my decision.
I would believe this is true, but because of how you answered quickly how the gummy bears were, and I don't know much about gummy bears.
How do you not know much about gummy bears?
I'm going to declare that your story is false.
I'm going to go with false. Not because of your gummy bear. That's just poor reasoning.
Thank you.
Thanks, boss.
I'm just picturing, like, if you made it past the security and you happen to go and then them having to come back to you, that's what's maybe throwing me off.
Yeah, you're right. It's not true. However, I got the story from an Amazon review of gummy bears where this happened to somebody in Toronto, and it gets a lot worse. They're actually taken to a separate room. They're searched, and in the process of being searched, that's when
things just explode.
Yeah, it's not good for them. Yeah.
Okay. And in that image is where we're gonna stop today's game. Anna is gonna hold on to her story, maybe to give us at a later date or maybe at the end of the show, depending on time. So let's move on to a discussion that's a little more complex and difficult for us to have. But after some time, Mr. MC Squared thought, how can we be in Kenya going through all this and not have this conversation? And that is on drought. My people were going through what is considered the 4th year of failed rains consecutively. During now, we heard all things about animals are dying, hundreds of animals. I think hundreds of elephants have already been declared dead. We're hearing of cows, of course, the usual cow videos that we get, but also people in regions that have always had food suffering from hunger. In Gatondo, which is a region, the Mount Kenya region normally has an abundance of food. But even there, you have people suffering of hunger. So we're going to have a conversation on what you guys think about the whole thing about drought. What could be the solutions? Is it just Kenya that's got it wrong? Is it Africa that's got it wrong? Is climate change just going to kill us all? So I'm going to throw it to Anna first, and then we're going to go from there. So Anna, what are your first thoughts?
Okay, well, first of all, the drought we're having is because basically this rainy season has basically failed.
Yes, another one.
This is actually our 5th
it's
season
fifth
to have
rains.
Failed since 2020. The last time this happened was 40 years ago. That was the last worst drought we had in 1980s, and that was like when a lot of world intervention had to come in.
That's where you hear the song "We Are the World" by Michael Jackson.
Yeah, I think there was
It was for Ethiopia.
That's what I thought. I thought
the
it was
Horn of
Ethiopia.
Africa region, which
but it was
we
the
are
whole
part
region.
of. Yeah.
So we haven't really had something this bad. I think 2016 was
2015 with the
or something, right? So I don't know. I feel like a lot of it is to do with climate change and our lack of response to how serious climate change is. Because the ripple effects of climate change, it's not just, okay, it's drought in, let's say, northern Kenya. It's how does that now affect insecurity in that region? Because then you have people's livestock dying, which is what's leading to a lot of the cattle raids.
Yeah.
So it's growing insecurity in that way, and it starts to compound and go like towards out. And that's why I think you're seeing it in Gatundo. There's different, like it's a ripple effect that's having global effects, basically.
So
and we don't have a collaborated approach
to solving. Yeah, you know, when you spoke of climate change, I don't know if you experienced this, but if the high school I went to, they would take time to try and scare children about crises. So they would do the videos of like the end of the world and
inconvenient
like,
truth.
It's all orange and the trees and everyone's just dry. People are dying because of thirst and heat stroke. And so you look at those teachers and you're like, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to scare us into action, but I'm not scared. But now I'm sort of getting scared into action. I don't know, because seasons like this, where I've expected it to not be this hot, I'm dealing with heat. In the rest of the world, people are dying of heat strokes. You're having soaring temperatures across places that are causing real life problems. So we are heading to the point of
no return.
No return, as many people say. So it's scary, but we'll pass on to you.
Wildfires.
So,
in as much as climate change is to blame, I also think that we need to contextualize the history of drought in Kenya, because 70% of Kenya's land is drought prone. So like droughts are just a thing that the Kenyan government has always had to deal with. Like even in pre-colonial times, there's this huge, pre-colonial times, 1898, there was this huge drought where 25 to 75% of the population were just wiped out.
Wow. Okay.
And it was bad. And then in 1918, there was another drought again where 5.5% of the population was completely wiped out. So I think drought is something that is endemic to Kenya, but that is not to say that climate change is not responsible. Climate change is making things so much worse. Like since 2014, rains have been irregular in Kenya, which is making agriculture much harder, making the drought situation much worse, making even like us getting water to do the everyday things that we need to do basically impossible.
Making fertilizer less effective.
Yes.
If you look at it this way, all these programs from government have been about giving fertilizer to the people. But if there are no rains, if there's no proper water, that fertilizer is not going to be utilized adequately. So one of the things you need very quickly, I think we have to become Israel. I remember I did a water management course in university, and they talked about how Israel have dealt with such an important drip system because water is becoming so scarce. I don't know if you guys in Nairobi and Kiambu area as well have dealt with huge water rationing of late. In Tanzania, I was just reading recently, they spoke about how people are going to have to do 24-hour water rationing consecutive. So it's like today, no water, tomorrow, water.
Or like in South Africa, it might have been like 2014, 2015, where Cape Town announced they were going to cut off its water unless people adjusted the way in which they use their water resources. And people did, because imagine just having no water. It was
and
bad.
it's that vital. Like it's that scary.
So, like for a moment, I do want to talk about why this is the case. Because if you look at the numbers, we get a drought once every 4 years. They're very regular. So why is it that our governments, successive and current, don't seem to have a solution to this?
I would say it's not just Kenya. You'd say it's Ethiopia, it's
Sudan, Somalia.
The whole Horn of Africa has this problem, but it seems to not necessarily be fixed. I think it's sometimes focusing on short-term things than ahead of long-term things. I think some of the things that need to be done have already started, like dams. Everywhere you're going, dams are being built. Everywhere you're going, especially the dry areas. That's going to be a major thing. I think also, we focused on the wrong things, and we focus on manufacturing, energy, all these things and how important they are. But you know the CSs that I'm very curious about right now? CS for water, CS for agriculture. Those are the ones who probably have the biggest load to bear over the next 5 years or 10 years or 50 years, because their jobs literally will have to do with our lives.
Yeah.
So I think it's wrong focus, wrong attention on what gives quick returns rather than what can provide long-term sustainable
I think
development.
also when we do go and do something, it's very much at a national level. So dams, you require national government to come in and make these decisions. And then, you're out in a rural area. And I think there's that lack of focus on how to get that community to be self-sufficient. So the training on water schemes, water irrigation, how they can basically just sustain themselves in these situations.
Yeah.
There's not enough of that, because I feel you go to someone and they have no clue how to, there's like the rains are not here and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So that lack of education, the lack of resources that these communities need.
Yeah.
So I think that it needs to go much lower.
Allow me to say something a bit controversial. I also think it's a lack of political will. Like if you think of where the drought is hitting, it's in areas that are considered to be economically unproductive because they're ASAL areas where agriculture, which is Kenya's primary economic driver, cannot be done. So the government is like, well, why should we invest there? Maybe they're saying that, like, why should we invest there? We're not going to get returns. I mean, there is a history in this country of like those regions being deliberately underdeveloped.
Yeah.
So I think that ought to also, that history of marginalization also ought to factor in to why maybe more recent governments have been reluctant or have put in measures that don't go far enough. Because there's just, if you have a history of ignoring somebody, getting to a point where you can recognize them is really hard.
Unlike your pessimistic view,
I'm not pessimistic. It's called realism.
I believe that leaders actually try to fix things. For example, in my home region, you have, for example, small irrigation schemes where you put small money, like 1,000 shillings or depending on the region, 10,000 shillings to the farmer to activate an irrigation scheme in the small villages. To help people get access to water. What I feel is it's not being done at scale. When it's being done at scale, issues happen. We can never forget Galana Gulalu, is that what it was called? Which is supposed to be 1 million acres of land under irrigation, which unfortunately didn't happen. I feel sometimes the will is there. I feel maybe sometimes it's the how and the efficiency and effectiveness that maybe is the problem.
And to add on, that will also, it doesn't, like the person at the top can have the will, but if that will is not shared down,
trickle down,
then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Because we all need to work on this together.
So anyways, things are weak.
We have no solution.
No solution. We'll be happy that it's bad in Kenya, but if you look at Ethiopia and Somalia, it's even worse. Somalia especially. So all we can hope is that things get better, people get to fix the issues, and hopefully in 10 years we're not having the same debate, or in 40 years we're not having the same debate that we're having about 40 years ago.
And also from like a personal perspective, please mind how you use your water. If you can, don't like leave your tap off if it doesn't need to be on. Try to find many ways where you can use all the water in your house for everything that you need, including like farming, showering,
technology, recycled water.
Yeah. Just really try your best, because you never know. One day the drought might reach you.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to take a break right there. Then after the break, we'll end with an interesting Convince Us segment. See you later. welcome back to Work in Progress. Now it is time for us to conclude with an interesting segment. We call it Convince Us. And this Convince Us is special because we realized October is over and we've not celebrated Mashujaa Day, we've not celebrated Black History for the UK. So what we're going to do is do like a mix of it. But we're going to put a twist to it. We're going to look at Black heroes or Black people who did remarkable things, but not now. They did it maybe when they were slaves, when they were colonized, long ago, and they went unknown for a while before they were remembered. So we'll do it very quickly. I'm going to give each of us like a minute or two just to quickly tell our person, and we'll move from there. So I'll start with you, Anna, then AX, then we'll conclude with the great.
Okay, so my person is called Nathan Nearest Green, and he was a slave back in Tennessee. And so you all know the whiskey Jack Daniels, right?
Intimate relationship with it.
So everyone thinks that, okay, the guy Jack Daniel is the one who distilled and made Jack Daniels the whiskey it is today. But that's actually not true. It's now come to light and everything that it was actually Nathan who was working on this farm. It wasn't owned by Jack Daniels, it was owned by a guy called Dan Cal. So when he was working there, he met Jack Daniel when he was young. And it was actually Nathan who taught Jack Daniel how to distill. So Jack Daniels, what makes it the whiskey is that it's like distilled in
Barrels,
sugar and maple charcoal, and that's why it has its very distinct taste. But that process of distilling was actually brought to America from West Africa by slaves. So it's that whole process that has given Jack Daniels its wonderful taste. And he was the wealthiest black man in Tennessee at the time.
What was his name again?
Nathan Nearest Green. He was the first black master distiller.
Wow. Nathan Nearest Green. Thank you so much for many Kenyans.
Thank you. We're eternally in your debt.
I'm very indebted to you. Okay, now we go to Miss AX.
So my story, my woman, comes to you from the coast of Ghana. Her name is, and forgive my pronunciation, Ya Asantewa. Yes, she was born around like 1840s, 1860s, and before she used to be a skilled farmer until her brother elevated her to the role of Queen Mother, which meant that she was advising the king. Now in 1896, the Ashanti people, the British were like, "Now we want everything that you have, and it's now ours." And the Ashanti were like, "Excuse me, what do you mean? No." So we go to war. So in fact, it was Asantewa who led the people to war. Like the rest of the people she was working with were like, "No, well, let's try to negotiate with the British. We can handle this. Like we're trying to figure out what to do." She was like, "Nah, men, women, see, we go to war. We can do this." Unfortunately, it did not end well for her. So she led the rebellion, and it resulted in about the deaths of about 1,000 British people.
1,000 British people?
1,000 British.
Did better than the Mau Mau.
Except it was 1,000 British and allied African soldiers. So I would imagine it was more African soldiers that died than the white. Because like the British people that were coming to Africa tended to be like the officers.
They used to send the Africans to kill the Africans.
Yeah, that's it. Like the king's god, right?
And then they didn't do as well as the
and 2,000 Ashanti died. So for every one she killed of theirs, two have lost. Unfortunately, by the end of this rebellion, she was captured and she was exiled to the Seychelles. Wow. Which, if Ghana is here, the Seychelles is here. Like, you have to literally cross an ocean to get there.
A story is like a mix of many histories I've learned. Yeah. Like, what's that lady of ours who was exiled? Mekatilili Wamenza, like Dedan Kimathi a little bit, the Dahomey women tribe, just like a mix of them. Yeah. So we'll conclude with...
no, she just died in 1921, that's all. Completed the story.
So me, I'm taking us to the 1700s. Yes, I'm a historian. So have you guys heard of someone called Thomas Fuller?
I believe you mentioned him one or twice.
So Thomas Fuller, because you've never heard of him, Thomas Fuller is actually a famous name in Black history, but he sort of went forgotten until I stumbled upon the beautiful thing owned by Elon Musk now.
Called Twitter.
And there's a Twitter channel called, I think, African History or African Archive, something like that. And they talked about Thomas Fuller, and I read it and I was very curious. He was a human calculator. So you've watched Hidden Figures, and you knew that before major calculations were made, humans used to be used to make calculations, like very smart people. So now it was like a party trick of his. He could calculate crazy things. For example, he'd be asked, how many seconds are in a year? And he'd wait like 1 minute just thinking, then he'd say 47,304,000 seconds.
I wish our resident mathematician was here to confirm those numbers because I don't trust you.
I don't believe he can beat Thomas Fuller. So Thomas Fuller was a slave who came from Africa. He was actually taken from the motherland.
He was enslaved,
from
yeah.
Benin, Liberia area, taken to the US at the age of 14. He grew up and he was bought by a family, a wealthy family, and he was one of the few that the wealthy family never sold because he was so amazing and he was very grateful to them for not selling him. You have to remember the times. But what was very interesting about him was just how impactful he was in calculating things. They just ask him numbers and he would just know math, and they think he learned mathematics because you think mathematics is not
So
simple. He learned mathematics on the way to the US.
So why do I have, and this is like related to one of our other shows called School of Caucasian Studies, please check it out. But like, why do I have a feeling that after he died, some white people took his skull and wanted to open it to see if why this black man was different?
Probably wondering what's up with this guy.
You guys are destroying my shuja, but it's okay.
There's also a lady called Katherine Johnson who worked in NASA, and she's also
Yeah,
very
that's the one
similar.
from Hidden Figures. And she did. You've
Wait,
not
what?
watched Hidden Figures?
Like ever?
So we're going to conclude by
why I kept
recommending
quiet.
Hidden Figures for everyone to watch. If you're into black history and you're into women empowerment, as I'm sitting in front of two women right here, which proves my point, you should watch Hidden Figures. Thank you so much for watching Work in Progress, and we will be here with you next time.